Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, actually. We broached the afternoon, apologies. So thank you very much for turning up to our next summer session. This one is hosted by Sumantha McMahon. Sumantha has a whole wealth of experience supporting tutors and tuition business owners in a whole range of areas. So I know it's always a pleasure to speak to her and to see her. You're very lucky to be able to have this opportunity to hear from her directly today. She's got an enormous wealth of experience about all sorts of things regarding managing your tuition business, promoting yourself, and I'm going to do the honors of just handing straight over to her to let her get going. But thank you very much, Samantha, for coming and joining us. We're really, really pleased to have you on board with the summer sessions, and we're really looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you. I'm blushing. Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Now, I'm not that familiar with Google Meet. So if there's anything in the chat, I will keep an eye on it. But for now, I'm just going to focus on the presentation. So put any questions in there. So firstly, thank you, Sam, for inviting me to do this. I'm not going to be asking for loads of audience participation today, partly because I know people feel a little bit uncomfortable at times. But also, I really want you to focus on generating as many ideas as possible today, rather than worrying about speaking to me. But if you would like to say hello, then I would love to hear from you. So please do type in the chat if you have any questions, if you have anything to add to what I'm saying. I will stop a couple of times to welcome questions as well. So there will be space for that. So you can dump those questions in the chat, or you can make a note and you can tell me. So the first point that I want to start with is that I know you might all be at different places in your journey. So I have very specifically created this to make sure that it's relevant for you, regardless of where you are in your journey. Like I said, please do ask questions. So I'm going to start with a little story about something I learned from someone who I call Peanut Guy. Weird name, but I don't know his real name. So I call him Peanut Guy. Now, I would say I'm the kind of person who doesn't buy from people who approach me in the street. It's just not the kind of person I am. I don't really like it. And I often meet my friends in Waterloo. It's a central point for us. And as I walk down those steps, there's always someone waiting with a clipboard to come and approach me. And I don't know if you've been in this situation, but I go into this weird mode where I kind of think, don't make eye contact, don't look approachable. And I just go in this strange, unfriendly mode because I've already decided I don't want to buy from them. So I would say I'm not that kind of person who will buy from someone who approaches me in the street. Or at least I thought I wasn't that kind of person until I met Peanut Guy. He made me realize I was wrong. So one day I was in Westfield, which is this massive shopping centre. There are bars and restaurants, and I was meeting my cousin, and her directions were terrible, and there was no reception, and I was lost, and I was stressed out. And I kind of gave up that stubbornness of trying to work things out by myself and asked a security guard where to go. So he led me, unfortunately, in the wrong direction, which I didn't realize at the time. And I ended up in this kind of courtyard area, and there were these lovely pop-up shops. And I kind of stood there feeling like just giving up. And one guy came over to me and he ran one of these shops. And he just asked me, look, are you all right? You don't look like you're okay. And I told him the situation and showed him the directions. And he was like, no, can't follow those directions. And he said, but I'll tell you what. And he went off, came back, and he said, have this free pair of sunglasses. So I thought, okay, could help. So I put on these sunglasses, and he said, and I also want you to have this sample box of my favorite peanuts that we sell. Just enjoy them while you're on your way. So I kind of had a little taste, and I thought, oh, they're really nice. And he's actually been really kind. And so I just asked him, how much are these? And I bought some. So it turns out I was wrong. I am the kind of person who will buy from someone who approaches me in the street. But not only will I buy from them, they don't even have to sell to me. I will ask them to buy what they offer. So you're probably wondering why I'm telling you this. The reason I'm saying this is because if you want to make sales, you have to sell. And how you do it makes all the difference. Today is all about generating ideas of how to attract students in September and beyond. But I'd be shortchanging you if I only helped you generate ideas, and I didn't touch on the selling part. If you just advertise, if you just post generic value-based content, then you run the risk of just adding to the noise. If you think about it, we are surrounded by people selling to us. You switch on the TV, there are adverts. You check your post and there are flyers. You open social media, people are selling to you. Our job is to be memorable, and we can only do that by cutting through the noise. And I'll be showing you how to do that today. So when you build rapport, when you just have a conversation, like Peanut Guy did with me, everything changes. And if you think about it, we should be doing that. We should be relying on people getting to know us a little bit, because as tutors, we're expecting parents to trust us with their children. So today I will be combining a few sales techniques with helping you generate ways you can attract students for September and beyond. If you want more on sales, then connect with me after this session. I can share links. I've got free stuff, I've got paid stuff. So you're not obliged to buy anything from me, but I can still help you. So before I get started, I'll very, very quickly introduce myself. I won't spend long doing this. If we're making friends for the first time, hello, I'm Sumantha, and I set up my very first business in 2004 when I was 22. I'm really proud to say that 20 years later, I'm 42 now, that business still runs. I get clients through word of mouth, don't really advertise it. But I definitely grew up with the mentality that running your own business isn't stable. You can't rely on it. So I actually worked a lot of my adult life running a business and working full time. And my first job was as a qualified business trainer. I worked corporately with sort of medium and large organizations. But I wanted a change. And in 2011, I became a teacher. My mum is a teacher and she told me to be a teacher, but you don't listen to your mum straight away. So it took me a while and I eventually went into teaching. But unfortunately, I fall into that statistic. I left the profession very burnt out, feeling quite broken. And in 2017, January 2017, I launched my tutoring business. Now, at the time, I would not use that language. I didn't see it as a business. It was something I did to earn some money while I just figured out what I wanted to do. So I also freelanced as a business trainer at the time. But within 6 months, I realized this was a viable business. After about a year, I went all in and I told the agency that I was doing business training through that I'm not available anymore. So I got to a point where I really wanted to think about how I can help more students. And I'd already launched groups. I was working to my full capacity. Didn't want to hire tutors at the time. I still kind of don't. And also at the time, I was, just in a lot of Facebook groups and people were approaching me for business advice. And I would just have casual conversations with people. So I thought, well, another way I could help more students is by helping other educators. So now I run Upgrade Your Education business in addition to being a tutor. And I exclusively work with education business owners. A large proportion of them are tutors. Some people are teachers looking to leave, and some of them sell to schools, but they still work in the education space. Now, I'll let you explore if you want to find out how I might be able to help you. But what I will share is that every week I have a free podcast. It's called Upgrade Your Education Business. It's action focused, and you're very welcome to listen to that. So that's a little bit about me. Now we're going to just dive straight in. So before we start coming up with ideas, we need to start those conversations, so to speak, those conversations that lead to sales, because we want to know how to turn the ideas you're going to generate today into income. Now, we often feel very uncomfortable with selling because the definition of selling is often it being an art of convincing people. But when we think about the word convince, it means we are changing someone's mind. And that feels pushy. It feels aggressive. And so we often just don't sell. So what I like to do is I like to take convince out of the definition. And when you take it out, you can meet people where they're at. You're no longer convincing them. You're just having a conversation. And you are offering your services and products as part of that natural conversation because they have a problem and you have a solution. An analogy I like to use that might help, and this really helps people sell group classes in particular when they're facing the issue of parents saying, no, I want one-to-ones. When you walk into your doctor's surgery, You don't walk in and they say, right, I have some antibiotics for you today, or you can choose from another medication. That's not what they say. They ask us questions. They triage us, essentially. They find out our symptoms. Then they present the one thing that's going to help us based on those symptoms. And that's what we want to do. We want to meet people where they're at. We want to get to know them, understand what they're thinking, and present that one thing. So this is the concept that's going to underpin everything I'm sharing today. And here's what I'm going to share. I'm going to give you 4 big questions, essentially, that will help you unlock ideas to attract students in September and beyond. This applies all year round. And the first thing we're going to look at is how we can actually align ourselves with what our clients, what our audience want right now. Mid-July, what do they want right now? What language do we need to speak? We'll then look at low-hanging fruit. You know, instead of always trying to get in front of new people, we'll think about the opportunities that exist in our world right now as well. We'll then move on to ways we can make that buying decision really easy. Sometimes, because we want to help people, we offer them lots of different options to accommodate different needs. But sometimes when you have too many options, you don't take any of them. And then finally, we'll discuss why in the film industry, trailers are so successful and how we can map that to our business. I will save space at the end for questions, but I'll do a time check about 3/4 of the way through, and I'll stop for some questions as well if we have some time. So please do type them in the chat or make a note of them, because you will have time to ask them. So let's get started with that first one. How can we align ourselves with people right now? Here's your first big question. The big question that will unlock what matters to your clients right now is to think about what they're thinking right now. Now, when business coaches ask this question, generally you hone in on one group of people who are thinking one thing. But as tutors, we're often working with different groups of people, sometimes even offering different subjects. So I'm an English tutor, but I teach for the 11+ exams, Key Stage 3 and GCSE. So I can't just focus on one person or one group of people. Let's navigate that. Here's what I want you to do. Now, normally in my training sessions, I leave gaps for people to make notes, to generate ideas. Today's slightly different because we just have an hour. So make a note, make a to-do list of things you need to do. And I'll give you to-do lists that you can take pictures of as well. Start by thinking of the different people you teach and identify the mindset they're in right now, mid-July. If you want to implement this right now, think about the mindset they're in right now. What anxieties do they have? What problems might they have? What are they thinking? I'll give you an example based on my tuition business. My GCSE year 10s and year 9s, they're not really thinking of exams right now. They're thinking about this long summer break they have ahead of them, all the things they want to do outside of studying. So if I wanted to connect with them, what could I say? How could I connect with them? Our aim, this is the goal you're focused on. We want them to feel relieved. They're so relieved that they've found you. So if I was talking to GCSE students or GCSE parents, I would perhaps talk about the way they can keep their English skills well-oiled without putting pen to paper, because that's what connects with them right now. If I asked them to read a ton of books and write essays, I mean, it would just fall on deaf ears. I would not be connecting with them. I would save the exam talk for later in the year. I know they've got their mock exams in December, so I want to start talking about exams in November. However, if I think about my year 5, 11+ students, summer's their prime time. Their exams are in October. This is their main gap that they have to really get ready for those exams. So in my marketing, or however you choose to do this, I'm not just going to talk social media, any form of marketing. While I continue to build that rapport with the other groups of people, like talking to my GCSE students about fun ideas, if I want to make sales right now, I need to talk to my 11+ group. They are the people I need to speak to, because that's the situation they're in right now. So remember what I said about Peanut Guy and what we learned from him. We need to cut through the noise. So if I were advertising something, I would not even mention my group classes or how many one-to-one slots I have available. That doesn't start an interesting conversation. Instead, I'm going to connect with them. I'm going to use the language based on what they're feeling right now. I'm going to say, let's get your child 11 plus exam ready, because that's where they're at. They are connecting with they are preparing for exams. I'm not going to talk about how they can build up their vocabulary. That's not relevant right now. That comes before. Right now, we're targeting the exams. Now, what's interesting here is that I'm not offering anything special. I'm teaching them exactly what I would normally teach at this time of year, but the language I'm using is special. It's connecting with them where they are right now. Think about today's webinar. The tips I'm sharing with you apply all year round. If Sam had asked me to deliver this in February, I would have delivered the same material. But when she asked me, what do you want to call it? I specifically named it to meet the majority of tutors where they're at right now. People are thinking about September. People are worried about summer being quiet. People often launch their businesses in September. Same content, different title. The title connects with people where they're at. So with this, think about how you can meet people where they're at right now and use language based on what matters to them right now. So here is your to-do list. If you want, you can take a screenshot or a picture. Here's your first to-do list. Your actions based on this first point is to start by listing the different groups of students you work with. And when you do that, just identify what matters to them right now, if right now is the time you want to implement some of this. A really good thing to do is also to create a calendar. You can add this to your online calendar, create a separate one, whatever you want. But just mark those important dates in the year, things like exam periods, school holidays, anything that matters to your students. Then what you can do is work your messaging backwards from those key times. And this gives you a bit of planning rather than you feeling like you're always chasing your tail with marketing and you're not sure what to write. This gives you a steer. This gives you a guide. So when you're doing this, one thing to remember, just like this webinar, the name of what you offer can go a long way with connecting with people. If you think about it, the name of your offer is a touch point. It's another way of communicating your message. So here's a little sentence starter. If you're struggling a little bit with this, here's your sentence starter that you can use. Instead of saying, I have some slots available in September, contact me if you want to know about them, you could be more specific and say, I have 3 slots available in my group class or one-to-ones, however you teach, in September for students wanting to, and then you fill in that gap. It's that blank, it's that gap that's going to connect with people. So I'll just repeat that in case you missed it. I have 3 slots available in September for students wanting to, and then you can fill that gap. If you can pinpoint exactly what they're going to get out of it, then you can be really targeted with your messaging and your selling. All right, so we've looked at how we can connect with people based on where they're at. Now let's have a look at the existing opportunities that we have in our world right now. Here's your big question. What further support do existing clients need? What further support do existing clients need? Now, there are different ways to approach this, to be honest. So I'm just going to go through one approach and then I'll show you another as well. So one approach you can take is this. Instead of focusing on always getting in front of new people, think about what you can offer your existing clients. And if you don't have any clients yet, if you're a very new business, just mind map all the different ways you can support the same group of people. I'll give you another example. When I first launched my group classes, I did it as a summer school. And for context, I did 3 classes. I launched 3 classes that had a capacity of, I think, 10 students each. It was either 10 or 15, I can't remember, but it was quite a large group. I got them half full without advertising. And the way I did that was by offering them first to my existing clients. It was a great way where they realized how valued they were. I said to them, you get first refusal. I'm not even advertising this yet. So let's combine this with the principle of meeting people where they're at in mid-July. You could think about how to support people as they're getting into that back to school mode. I know we're at the start of the school holidays, but you know how time flies on, it goes really fast, and this gives you a chance to plan a little bit. With my audience, something I've learned over the last 7 years is that if I sell something late August, it does really well. If I sell any other time in the summer holidays, it doesn't. And you kind of learn more about your audience over time. So if we tie this into what we were just talking about with our messaging, I could speak to my year 9 students late August, and I could say, let me help you get confident to walk into your GCSEs. Because if I meet them where they're at, they're probably feeling a little bit nervous. They're like, oh my God, I'd forgotten about this. 2 weeks to go, I'm going to be in year 10. And they might be a bit nervous. So I can really speak to them based on what they're feeling. And the beauty of doing something towards the latter end of summer is that you can then funnel them into your September and beyond classes. You can use that summer offer. I'm not going to call it a class because it could come in different forms, but you could use that to encourage people to continue with you. And actually, that's what I did with my group classes that launched in the summer. 4 years on, actually, some of those students are still in my groups and they work one-to-one with me. So that's one way you can approach this concept of kind of that low-hanging fruit, the opportunities you have in your world. Another way, I promised another way is to ask yourself this question: what are my clients going elsewhere for that I could also offer? What are my clients going elsewhere for that I could also offer? Because let's face it, if people are already working with us, it's great if they can just carry on. It's a win-win. They don't want to go somewhere else. They already know you. You're a known quantity. So if I run with that worked example, let's imagine I'm just rolling with doing something for my 11 plus group. I know that my parents buy 11 plus exam papers elsewhere. So I could sell those. I could offer that to them. I could do skills-based masterclasses at this time of year, because right now it's too late to talk, like to start from the foundations for the people taking the exam. So I could do masterclasses. I could create a video or a webinar on exam technique. I could sell that. I could use it as a lead magnet to get people interested in September. So there are lots of different examples, but that key question is, what are your clients going elsewhere for that you could actually provide? Now, to bring this really to life, I want to just share a really quick example. Erin Johns is one of my clients, and she's a neurodiversity tutor, and she works with a large cohort of home educated students. You have to forgive me if I'm not using the right terminology. It's either home educated or homeschooled. I know it's different in the UK and the US. So please forgive me if I'm not using the right terminology. And one day we were in a one-to-one and she was saying, I can't keep working like this. I have a young daughter. We have such a busy life and I am teaching all the time. And what we had done also is I'd analysed how she was already getting clients. And a really big way she was getting clients was by just helping parents. She was building trust by answering their questions. So someone might ask, could you give me some advice on how to deregister my child? Or the counsellor asking me this, what should I do? Or my child has this neurodiverse need. Can you give me some advice as well? And so I said, well, why don't you turn that into something? There's clearly a demand for it. And she's now on the cusp. In fact, this week, she's sending her email out to people on the waiting list. She's on the cusp of launching this membership. We take that step back and we think, how can I impact more people? How can I help my existing clients and new ones? You can be really creative about it. Your options aren't just, shall I run groups or shall I hire tutors? There are lots of different ways we can do it. And things like this are really great to funnel students into your main offers. So her membership will be cheaper. But for anyone who's unsure if they want to go onto her group classes, this gives them a taster. It builds that trust. So that's a real life example for you, just so that you can get creative. Today, I want you to generate as many ideas as possible. Don't veto any of them. Just make that list, get excited, and then you can start shortlisting. So here is your second set of actions. Here are your second set of actions. Again, feel free to take a screenshot, take a picture of this if you want. This will all be recorded. I know Sam and John are recording this. It will be available for replay. So the first thing is to list the different ways you could support your clients. What are all the different ways you can make that impact? Then if you want to think about right now, whenever right now is, so you guys might be storing this training up to implement later in the year. So think about what you could offer that meets their needs right now. Think about that calendar I asked you to create. That would be really useful here. And then ask yourself what language you could use that will really connect to how they're feeling right now as well. And I've given you a few different examples so that you have a range of ideas. I can see some people taking notes, so I'll just pause for a few seconds. Okay. All right, so we know how to meet people where they're at by aligning ourselves with what they need right now. We've thought about the existing opportunities in our world, and there are loads of ways you can do this, so please be creative. Now let's think about how we can stop those hesitations, because remember, selling isn't about convincing people. I don't want to convince someone to change their mind if I'm not right for them. But if I am right for them, then I'd be doing them and me a disservice if I didn't make that decision making really easy. So let's see how we can do that. Think about any incentives you can offer. When you go down the high street, probably in late July, you will see that WH Smith and clothes shop and everywhere are branding this back to school message. It's in all the shops. Now, are they selling special clothes? Are they selling special stationery? No, it's the same stuff they sell all year round, but they're meeting people where they're at. So they use that time to connect with people because they are thinking, oh yeah, I need to buy some new school trousers and she does want a new, pencil case. They're using that time to connect with people. And that's when they choose to give special offers and discounts. Same stuff they're selling all year round, but they're being really intentional about when they're promoting this message and promoting special offers. So when you start generating some ideas of all the different things you could offer your existing clients, new clients, you could even use some of these ideas as an incentive for new clients. So as always, I'll show you some examples. When you're thinking about incentives, you want to create desire. You want people to think, I better buy that now, not later. So if WH Smith right now didn't have the back to school message, people would think, well, it's just the start of the summer holidays. I've got loads of time. And then in the last 24 hours, they were like, where did time go? Now I have to buy all this stuff. Whereas if WH Smith start giving that message and reminding people, helping them, saying, come on, let's get organized nice and early, then someone will think, actually, the offer's on now, I better buy it now rather than later, where I'll just be buying the same stuff at full price. So we want to create that desire through this. Here's an example. I'm still going to run with that worked example with my 11 plus students. Right now, the incentive I would provide is something like, when you book my September lessons, you will get a free 11 plus paper pack. I'm specifically talking exams because that's what matters. I'm not offering a free reading list. I get asked all the time by parents, which books should my students be reading? Can you give me a reading list? But that's not relevant right now. That's interesting at the start of their journey. Right now, we're talking exams. So choose your incentive wisely. Think about what they really need right now, what's going to be really helpful to them right now. Remember what the shops do and think about how you can learn from that. Now, I know I can see some people in here are in my business membership called the Tutors Mastermind. So if you want a little bit more on this, head over to the Mastermind area, just log in, go to Supercharge Your Sales, that's the category, and then you look at the training session called An Incentive Clients Can't Say No To. That will just help you plan that. But for everyone, whether you are working with me or not, here's your to-do list. Take a screenshot, grab a picture of this. The first thing you want to do is list incentive ideas that connect with what people need right now. Again, whenever right now is. And then ask yourself, what could I offer new people? Now, when I say new people, they might be existing clients who are buying a new offer. So you might be launching something new, or there might be new people coming into your world. What can you offer that they're going to think, that's great, I really want that, so I'm going to buy this now, not later? Now, a really top tip is to make sure that you are offering an incentive that won't upset your existing clients. One of my clients who I worked with a while ago, she runs group classes, and she decides to create an incentive where she said, if you book by this date, your child will get a free half an hour one-to-one with me. And it sold like hotcakes. I mean, it was so successful, but there was a problem. She already had an existing group of students, loads of them. And then they started contacting her saying, well, can we get that free one-to-one as well? And she had a bit of a panic saying, I don't have the time to say yes to everyone. What do I do? So when you're choosing an incentive, do be careful. Make sure it's something that's really manageable for you, and make sure it's something that your existing clients aren't going to feel upset at. They're not going to feel like, well, hang on, why is she prioritizing, all these new people and not looking after me? So that's just something to bear in mind. Now, I've already covered quite a lot. We're about 3/4 of the way through. I'm doing a quick time check. Are there any questions? I'm going to open the chat quickly to see if there are any questions in there. But if you have any questions, now would be a time to type them, or I don't know how this works if you want to unmute and ask a question. I'll just give you a moment if you have any. If not, we'll carry on.
Hi, Sam. I do have a question.
Hi.
My specialism's A-level English, like you, English language, and often my clients that find me do say that. I'm really relieved because it's really hard to find, apparently, from what I hear, an A-level English language specialist. But so how, because it's a smaller market, or the smaller numbers of kids doing it, and they've opted to do it. It's not, how would I work this? I mean, I've jotted down some ideas, but I just wondered what you thought.
How would you do what?
Just to, I suppose, let me just have a look. Kind of find them, and they've got a different year, haven't they? And just the volume of GCSE students and kids doing 11+ is probably more. So it's just, how do I tailor it to that? Because it's a smaller market.
Yeah. So again, it's all about just trying to be creative about it. So something you could do, for example, is you could connect with, let's say, a GCSE English tutor. Yeah. And you could even do things like a free webinar where you're talking about that pathway potentially to A levels, or you could run something in the summer that bridges that gap a little bit. So you could talk about how sort of ex year 11 students can prepare for English A level. So you could run things like that as well. I would say that it's really important to remember that it's a tapestry of things that work. It's not necessarily kind of one thing and then that's the one thing that's going to work. There'll always be leaders, but as I'm going to share at the end, excuse me, it's quite important to see this as an experiment and to try things out. And also, Geraldine, do you already have students that you work with?
Yeah, I do the GCSE as well, because I'm an examiner and I've been an examiner for many years. So I do use them, but they don't always pick to do. A lot of them, they don't necessarily like English. Some of them, I do prefer working at the top level, but so they don't always choose English language. It's
Yeah. Okay. Well, the reason I asked that is because when you think about your existing A-level students, you can also analyze, how did I get them? How did they come to me? And how can I optimize that? How can I do that one thing better?
How
can I do that better? Geraldine, is that okay? I can see a few questions coming
through. That's lovely. Thank you ever so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Camera off now.
No problem. Thank you for asking. I'm going to scan through the questions. I'm going to focus on things that are probably most relevant to today's session. Let's have a look. So how do we best guess what people are feeling at a given time? A great question. You need to get to know your audience, but also there are different ways to know your audience. So I like to join Facebook groups and observe. I just listen. You keep your ear to the ground. I still do tons of discovery calls with educators, with parents, because even if I don't think they're going to become my client, it's a learning opportunity. So you learn through trends that you see in questions at different points in the year. But of course, some things are logical. So if there are particular exam periods, if you do teach for exams, then you know what they're going to be thinking before the exam. I know that in January, my GCSE students get their mock results back. And it's also their last stretch until the final exams. So you can use those key points in the year to kind of gauge what people are likely to be thinking and what they need. So Ariane, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. I hope that gives you some ideas. Penny, where's the best place to advertise? That's a bit of a how long is a piece of string style question, because it really depends on your business. It depends on you, because I could say to you, the best place to advertise is on Facebook. But if you hate Facebook, if you hate social media, if you're not good at being on there, then you're not going to sustain that. So the key is to work out where your potential clients are hanging out and are in a consumer mindset. Those two are important, because they might be hanging out on, let's say, Instagram, but are they looking for a tutor on there? Are they in that mindset? Or are they more in that mindset when they're on Facebook? Are they in that mindset on LinkedIn, or are they wearing their professional hats on LinkedIn? So when you're thinking about where to advertise, think about where they're in the right mindset, combined with what's really manageable and sustainable for you, because it's the combination of that will really work. Penny, I hope that's okay. I hope that's giving you an idea. How do you plan your lessons by groups and levels? Are you doing this beforehand? I would say that's not really relevant to today's, but very quickly, I don't plan lessons. My style is very fluid. I will start a lesson by asking students how they're doing. What's going on? What are you doing at school? Oh, you've got a test coming up. And I rely on a very large bank of resources. That's how I teach. When I had large group classes, I planned. I was selling them in half-term blocks. So I said, this is what we're learning next half term. And that's what people bought into. Now I do my groups very differently. They're very organic. They're about 3 to 4 students each, and they just continue from one year to the next. So I get to know them for a period of a minimum of around 4 to 5 years. So I know them well, and I can tailor the lessons like that. Amy, do you use social media a lot? Yes, I do. I don't use it very much for my tuition business anymore, purely because I am at full capacity and kind of word has spread. Now I get a nice stream of inquiries. 7 years on, I will add, it didn't happen overnight. But yes, social media was a really key way that I built that up. What I will caveat that with is what I did in 2017 that worked wouldn't work now. Now we have to take a slightly different approach because the landscape is different. But the short answer to that is yes, I'm a very big fan of social media. I really like being on it for my business. I like getting to know people, and that helps. Social media marketing works when you enjoy it because it does require you to be quite present. Amy, I hope that answer was okay for you. Ian, how do you know tips best medium? So Ian, you're asking a question that's very similar. Do you have any tips, please, on the best medium to approach potential new students? It kind of depends who your new students are. So if you take the 11+ market, there are so many Facebook groups filled with parents. If you take the neurodiverse market that Erin works in, again, lots of groups. Parents are asking questions, fantastic way to start those conversations, build some trust. If you're working with, let's say, A-level, GCSE, Key Stage 3 students, parents don't tend to have groups where they're asking about academic stuff related to their children. They're a little bit more hands-off there. So a lot of clients might get business through, so the way I funneled people in actually when I first started doing this was through the local Facebook groups. Again, I'm talking social media because that's what I did. But when I work with clients, I find a route that suits them. If they don't like social media, we don't use it. But the way I did it was that I had a Facebook page where I was posting really great content, and then I would invite people through other groups to join. And that's how I built a bit of a following, built my audience, and then inquiries started coming in. Again, a slightly different approach would need to be taken because the landscape is very different now. But that's a really good sort of starting point, a good foundation. Ian, it also depends if you're teaching online or face-to-face. If you're an in-person tutor, there are lots of things you can do in your community, in your locality that could really help as well. Jennifer, would you recommend approaching schools? Jennifer, I'm presuming you mean for tuition services, not selling something to schools. Would I recommend it? I think everything's an experiment. I think everything is worth trying. I've never done it because I haven't needed to. I'm not going to add things to my list if I don't need it. And that's important, by the way, because we often look at strategies and think, oh, let me try that. but it spreads us really thin. So Jennifer, if you're an in-person tutor, then something like approaching local schools might be worthwhile. Local parent groups, things like that. So it's worth a try if you think that it would help. Amy, do you have any events or presentations like stands to promote in person as well as online? So again, I've never needed to do that because social media has been my stand. That has been the place where I promote. But I do think there's a lot of value in it as long as you're choosing the right places to promote in. If you're in person, if I was an in-person tutor, I would do that because it's a really great way for me to get out in the community. Think about Peanut Guy. He just approached me and had a really nice conversation, and then I asked to buy from him. So it's a great way for you to just get to know people and start conversations and build that rapport. Viral, can you talk a little bit more about marketing, i.e. what would be the best marketing strategy? So Viral, we don't have time for it today is the short answer. I have lots of paid material on it, and I have got lots of free material on my podcast about marketing. So if you want a little more on marketing, Viral, feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to share some links. Like I said, no obligation to buy from me. I will share free stuff as well. But marketing strategies are more complicated, and so it's something we probably don't have time for today. Elaine, how important is it to have a website? It depends on your business. If your business relies on a website, so let's say you're selling resources and stuff like that, then maybe you need one. If you are just starting your business, I would put website at the bottom of the list, because a website, unless you're really focused on SEO, where people are doing a Google search and you're coming up, unless you're really focused on SEO, which is like a full-time job in itself, then your website is kind of back-end support. So you might contact me because you found me somewhere else. And then I might say to you, have you looked at my website? Or I might provide a link saying, here's my price list, or whatever it is that I want to give you. So you can achieve that in different ways. It doesn't need to be a website. You could create an information pack. So unless you feel like a website is crucial to your business, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't focus on it yet. It's expensive, it's a time drain, and it's kind of like, it leans into quite an old school mentality of, when I have a website, I have a business. A lot of people launched a business by having a website. I did it with my first business, but actually you have a business when you start having clients, really. So Elaine, I would focus on what's going to get you to your clients and let that steer your decision. I'll take one more question because I don't want to go over time. Ursula, do you advertise prices? Yes, I do. I'm really transparent with prices. It's just a choice that I make, partly because I want to pre-qualify people. I don't want to have lots of calls with people and spend my time with them for them to say, love what you do, but I can't afford you. Or if they don't want to invest, if they're not ready to invest. So yes, I'm very open about prices. There is an argument to say that you shouldn't be, because sometimes it stops people from having an initial conversation with you in the first place. So try it out. If you're not sure, see what the result is. Even when you advertise prices, people still will ask, how much do you charge? So you'll still get that question, but it's a personal choice, I think. All right, thank you so much for all those really, really good questions. I'm going to just carry on with the last idea. John, am I all right with time?
Yep. No, of course. No, if you're not finished, you've got the last idea. Go for it, please.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to quickly learn a little bit from the film industry. When we think about trailers, think about what the point of trailers are. They're designed to help us decide whether to pay to watch the film. And how do they do it? They actually give us paid material for free. They show us that, because remember, we're not trying to convince people. We just want to help them make the right decision. And that's how they help us make the right decision. But they don't just give us snippets. They help us experience the emotions that we're going to experience when we watch that film. So they give us something very experiential, because we make decisions based on feelings. We justify them with facts. So I might make the decision based on feelings to watch that film, but the facts might be, maybe I'll go in a month's time because money's a bit tight and cinema tickets are really expensive. Or, you know, what other facts I might have, like, this is a 4-hour film. I don't really have time for that this weekend, but I do the following weekend. So we make decisions based on feelings, but we justify them with facts. So let's think about how we can map this to our businesses. One thing we can do is tap into why people might hesitate. Are they unsure whether they can commit to a block of lessons? Let's say you sell things in blocks. If so, we could respond by a paid taster session. I sold loads of places on my old group classes by doing that. £10 for a one-off taster session. And then they carried on with me because that's what they wanted, just a low commitment. Are they unsure if what you need is exactly what you offer, is exactly what they need? Maybe they're thinking, oh, I have loads of time to think about September tutoring. Now, that's where the incentive idea kicks in. We give them a bit of urgency to make that decision. So I share this in more detail in my group class course, but I'll give you a key thing that worked with my groups. I actually offered my existing clients a special launch discount. They knew it was a one-off. They knew it was exclusively for them. And I gave them the date that I was going to start advertising and made it really clear that this is first come, first serve. So that's what I did for them. That was my incentive. But for everyone concerned, tapping into this trailer for a film idea, it was also a less scary way for them to try before they bought. Many of them continued at full price, but when you get a discount, it doesn't feel as scary. It doesn't feel like it's too much of a commitment. So that special discount also enticed people to experience my new groups before they committed to them. And that was just one of the ways. I also use things like show reels. But if I continue with this worked example, right now, this time of year, I could maybe offer a masterclass on 11+ exam technique. I'm meeting people where they're at. And this masterclass could be free, it could be paid, all depends on your strategy, where you're going to take them afterwards. And I would do this in August. Now, the thing to remember, okay, when you try any of these ideas, is to make sure that there is a connected set of steps that follow. If I did a one-off masterclass and just hoped, crossed my fingers and hoped that they would carry on working with me, I probably wouldn't get a big uptake, because a lot of people might do it because it's cheap, because it's free, and they have no intention. But I need to guide the people who are interested. So I might use email marketing, I might use social media, I might just make a few phone calls or send a few WhatsApp messages, however you choose to do it. Decide where to take people afterwards. Maybe you invite them to some one-to-one meetings where you can talk about the progress of their child, give them some tips, and then talk about September. So here are your final set of actions. Take a picture, take a screenshot if you want. The first thing you want to do is list the reasons why someone might hesitate to buy right now being when you want to sell, and ask yourself, how can I respond to those? Now, a top tip, and if you teach English, you'll be very familiar with this principle, is show, don't tell. Okay, so if I was showing people, okay, here's an example. I got loads of questions with my larger group classes saying, but if my child has a question, will they have time to answer it? And, if they're mixed ability, then they didn't use the word mixed ability, but, they said, if they're mixed ability, how are you going to still cater to them in a large group? And I was trying to explain teaching techniques, basically, specialist teaching techniques, and I couldn't do it properly. So I decided to show them instead of telling them. I created my trailer. It was a video of me teaching, but I was really, really careful with what I chose. I chose to tackle those specific hesitations. And from that, so many people, I just sent, when they asked questions, I just sent them the link to this video. And so many of them said to me, you know what, I sat there and I watched this with my child and she's really excited to join your lessons now. So we're in. So it's that trailer. It's that trailer for a movie. You're excited. You're making decisions based on feelings. You're justifying them with facts. All right, so we've gone through these 4 key areas. I'm looking at the time. John, I hope I'm on time.
You're totally fine. Well done.
Okay,
thank you.
So here's the thing I really want you to remember, because I know tutors, when you come from an education background, especially, I think selling can be really uncomfortable. Don't see yourselves as a salesperson. See yourself as a problem solver. And your job is to be a bridge. People are at point A when you meet them, and you want to get them to point B. Point B is where they are ready to buy. They're excited to buy from you. They want to work with you. How can you guide them over that bridge? Now, I'm going to finish with 3 final thoughts. And these are just generic things that will really help you with all of these ideas as a kind of umbrella. We teach in terms because, things are organized by the academic year. But we want to plan in quarters. So when you're planning these ideas, divide the year in 3-month blocks, because our bills don't come at term time. So this will help you with things like seasonal dips, but it would also help you plan what kind of incentives or initiatives you need to launch and when. Teach in terms, plan your business in quarters. The second thing to remember is that no decision is final. If you're sitting there right now and overthinking things and thinking, but how should I price this? And should I do a masterclass? And should I have it paid or free? Or, what should I try? Don't overthink it. Just try it, because you can change your mind as many times as you need. This is one big experiment. What works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. And on that note, remember that everything works and nothing works. So we had some fantastic questions in the chat, and I tried to give you broad enough ideas so that you could just experiment. I don't want to fix you and say, this is one method and this is the method you need to follow. Try stuff out and then look at the results and tailor what you do with those results. If you want more on that principle, look up Andrew and Pete's 90-10 rule. The 90-10 rule is really, really good. You spend 90% of your time doing one thing remarkably well. So from this presentation today, from this webinar, choose one thing. Don't try and do it all of the ideas. Just choose one thing and master it. Go all in, track the results, see how it goes, and tailor what you do according to that. So thank you so much. That hour absolutely flew by. I think we've got 5 minutes to spare. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you to those who are watching on replay. You can connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can connect with me by emailing me. My website is upgradeyourEducationBusiness.com. And please do check out my podcast. So any questions? John, do I have time to take a couple of questions if anyone has
There's
any?
a couple of last minute questions, absolutely. And thank you so much to Sumantha for a fantastic presentation. Really insightful, peppered with really interesting anecdotes and very handy tips as well. So I hope everyone's had something interesting and useful to take away from it. They can take and apply in their own business. Any last minute questions? Lots of very happy.
Thank you for the lovely Matthew. That's so exciting. 3 weeks in. Oh, I'm really excited for you. Please, can you help drop your links? Sunday, the best thing to do is if you go to upgradeyourEducationBusiness.com, upgradeyourEducationBusiness.com, you can come and connect with me however you prefer. Because honestly, I don't have the links handy and we're running out of time. So thank you so much, everyone, for your questions and for your really, really kind words. You make all the hard work for prepping this stuff really worth it. Any last minute questions before we say goodbye? Doesn't look like there are.
No, you've done an amazing job, Sumantha. Everyone's obviously very, very clear. Thank you so much for all your help. Thank you so much on behalf of everyone that managed to make it, and for those people that might manage to catch up with it later. There's one question from KW.
Yeah. Oh, you've got right in the last. I don't know what to do. What do I do here? Do I press open view?
KW needs to unmute themselves and say something, unless they don't actually have a question. That was just a hand that they've left up.
KW, do you have a question? Last chance.
I think not. Never mind. Brilliant. Well, they can get in touch with you if there is further questions. Thank you so much, Sumantha, and thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you joining the summer session.